Good afternoon to you guys. Welcome, welcome. So we are going to get started, right? So like I said, today's workshop is all about vacation employment. My name is Nandi Mitchell, and I am from the Careers Co-Curricular and Community Engagement Department, part of the Division of Student Services and Development here at UE. So I'm going to bring up my presentation. Just give me a couple of seconds. Right, so everyone should be seeing my presentation. Put a thumbs up in the chat. If you are, let me know if you can see my presentation. Okay, great, awesome. So here at UE Careers Co-Curricular C3, we have, it's one of the things, vacation employment is one of the things that we organize for our students and share opportunities. And so this workshop is going to talk a little bit about that. And we're also going to talk about how to be prepared for that job hunt into the vacation period, getting internships. So I just wanted to start off with a really simple question: why work? Right? And it may seem obvious, but I'm still going to outline it. First of all, experience, right? Many of y'all, this workshop is for returning students, and I know we may have some students in final year, but I'm really focusing on the students who are in first year, second year, third year returning. If you're in first year, put it in the chat. Let me see. Just put a 1 in the chat. If you're in second year, put a 2 in the chat. But I just want you guys to know that in your final year, when you're getting ready to graduate, you'll have to have a resume, obviously. And one of the things that makes your resume stand out is work experience, right? And we often ask that question: how do I get experience without a job? How do I get a job without experience? Well, I'm here to tell you this afternoon, it is through being a student and internships, right? And the whole ethos of internships is to give students the opportunity to gain experience. Employers know that when they are hiring and they have the internship program, a big part of it is these are students who have little to no work experience, and they design their internship programs to um to develop students, to develop and give them experience. So it's really important when you're in your final year, you want to be able to say you have some work experience under your belt. So that is why you want to go for that internship. Competitiveness, it is getting more and more competitive, and you stand out if you're a final year student getting ready to enter into the working world. You stand out more if you have internships under your belts. Career planning. Doing internships is a really useful way to explore and see what it is you like, what it is you're interested in. And I always use myself as an example at this point because I remember I wanted to be a journalist, I wanted to be a reporter. I did an internship at a media house and realized it really wasn't for me. And I had to do a whole 180 switch to figure out, okay, what else can I do with my media and communication degree? Because I no longer want to be a journalist, right? So it can help with the career planning process, right? So having that experience, speaking to people in the field, being able to access people who are in the field, even if you're not working in that exact department, being able to talk to persons, which will bring me to my next point, building a network. That's why you want to also do an internship, right? So building that network also helps with the career planning process because you can reach out to persons after the internship experience is over, continue the relationship through, checking in ever so often by email, following those persons on LinkedIn. So you want to get that experience and build your network, right? So those are some of the reasons why you want to do an internship. And I also have long-term employment. And it's kind of connected, this point is kind of connected to building a network. Sometimes if you are in first year, you do an internship with a particular organization. In second year, they might take you back if it's an organization that you enjoyed working with, if it's an organization that you really have earmarked as one of your top choices to work once you're graduating. And when you're in third year, and when you're, so first year, after your first year, you work during the summer. After your second year, you work during the summer. And then when you're in final year, if they have a position, they have an opening, you're almost a shoo-in for that position because they've gotten to know you over the two vacation periods or over the one vacation period even. And that's the way of gaining long-term employment. And that's actually a strategy that some companies do. So it's sort of like a long, prolonged interview process, a long, prolonged getting to know you process. And companies actually use it as a strategy. It's a strategy that we pitch to companies as well. And it's something that they are open to. So an internship can lead to a job once you're ready to graduate and enter into the working world. So it could lead to long-term employment. So that's another reason why you want to see if you could snag an internship. So that takes us to the next slide, which is vacation employment opportunities. So the question is, how can you increase your chances to be employed during the vacation period? At our department, specifically the Careers and Placement Unit, we provide two avenues where you can seek employment opportunities. Right. So the first avenue that I'm going to talk about is the recruitment fair. So many of you will be seeing a lot of World of Work students on the campus promoting World of Work. The recruitment fair is actually not just for graduate students, but it's actually also for returning students as well. Companies at the recruitment fair, they are going to be, some of them will have vacation internship opportunities as well as graduates. Some of them might only have vacation internship opportunities. So you want to save this date, April the 14th, 2023. That's a Friday. That's when we're going to be having our recruitment fair. So save that date from now. I know a lot of students don't come on campus on a Friday, but that particular Friday, you want to make sure that you're there so that you can access the different companies, talk to them, the ones that you're interested in, and access the different vacation internships that they have to offer. So the location is JFK Auditorium and the Engineering Undercroft, right? Pretty central on campus. If you don't know where those places are, now is the time to ask your friends, ask around, make sure you have it located, you know where to go. But that's the location. JFK Auditorium and Engineering Undercroft. We're going to have companies there with setting up their booths. Excited. We are talking to them right now as we are planning the recruitment fair. Excited, and they are excited to meet you guys, talk to you guys. So that's where you'll go to meet those companies. And the time of the recruitment fair is from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. So, first question in, can someone confirm if the fair is open to second year students as well? Yes, it is open to second year students. It's open to all students, right? All students, undergrad and postgrad. There are going to be graduate opportunities, which if you're in second year, that won't be for you, but there will be vacation internship opportunities, and those are the ones that you want to target. We actually come out with a recruitment fair booklet where you will see all the companies that will be in attendance, and you will see which companies have vacation employment opportunities, and those are the companies you want to look out for, right? And the companies also indicate what areas they are looking for with students. Right, so what do you need to participate and attend in this recruitment fair? You definitely have to walk with your student ID. You want to have acceptable attire. There was a question in the chat about dress code, so we're going to get into that. And those are the main things. If anything changes, look, keep checking your emails, your inboxes leading up to the fair. We do share information. Things might change, but you all just stay connected to us so that you all will know what is the latest information the as it pertains to the fair, right? But essentially, these are the two things that you need: your student ID, and you need to be an acceptable attire, and you also need to have your resume, right? So we're going to talk about acceptable attire, right? So acceptable attire is professional wear, right? So I want to say recruitment fair is like going on numerous job interviews, right? So you want to treat the recruitment fair as if you're going on numerous job interviews, right? It's kind of like speed dating. You go from one person to the next. With recruitment fair, you go from one company to the next, right? And when you go for a job interview, you always dress in an elevated professional look, right? So people who go to work every day, how they dress, they might wear, their soft pants, a nice shirt, their heels. That's how they come to the office every day. Depending on the organization they work in, it might be a little bit more casual. Depending on the organization, it might be super formal. But when it's a job interview, it's not everyday workwear. It's an elevated look, right? So you want to wear, and I have a picture up. I'm dealing with the ladies first, right? Coming to the guys. Don't worry, guys, I got you, right? So a an elevated professional look. You want to have closed-toe shoes. You want to have a slight heel. I mean, it could be flats, but I would say to elevate, maybe flats, maybe wear stockings, right? You want to have a blazer, a jacket, a nice shirt. And I have an example here of a lady in a nice, what do you call that, a pencil skirt that hits the knees, right? So you want to be on the more conservative side, right? So you don't want to wear a skirt that's too short. You want to make sure your clothes fits you well. On the other side, I have a young lady in a nice professional dress. This is also quite acceptable. I think a dress like this is called a shift dress. So some people might put a jacket over this, but this is just an example of an elevated professional look. You want to have your heels, your shoes. Just going to share some more pictures with some more examples. Here's another example, trousers. So a few years ago for recruitment fair, we helped one of our students go shopping for trousers. And I realized that a lot of stores in the mall tell students what are trousers are not necessarily trousers, meaning that it's sort of almost like leggings. It's like tight and fitted from the waist go down to the ankles, right? So I just want to say beware of that. If it's fitted and tight from the waist go down and it looks more like a leggings, those are not professional trousers. You want to make sure you have some room in your leg as you go down. It could be a straight leg, it could be a wide leg, right? Some trousers are a bit shorter and stop above the ankle, right? And then some of them go all the way down to the ankle. So you really want to make sure that you are wearing trousers and not something that resembles leggings, right? And it's sometimes it's like a pants that has a kind of very it has a lot of stretch. It's almost like a spandex type material. So you want to avoid that, and you want to make sure that you have trousers that have room, throughout the leg as you go down from your waist to your leg, right? And these ladies, they're in their blazers as well. They're in their closed-toe shoes as well. And I would say, as it pertains to hair, just the key rule where hair is concerned, it could be natural hair, it could be a curl pattern, it could be locks, it could be straight, whatever the hair type and hair texture, the key rule is you just want it to be neat. That's what professional is, right? So ensuring that it's neat, it's not in your face. And in terms of jewelry as well, you want to make sure that you are more on the conservative formal side, so no large hoop earrings or long dangly earrings. You want to go for smaller hoops, you want to go for stoppers. That's the professional look when you are preparing for a job interview. If you don't have a blazer and you don't anticipate yourself being able to get a blazer, then a nice shirt. I have a picture here of a young lady in a really nice shirt with a collar. That can work as well with the soft pants or the soft skirt. Again, I would say if you want to elevate the look without the blazer, then stockings helps to do that, to just kind of lift, bring the look up some more. But just remember that when you're going for a job interview, you want to make sure that you really take it up a notch, right? So if any of you all have had work experience before and worked in an office, what you wore for your if it was, everyday office wear, just think an elevated look with blazers, stockings if you can, um, proper pants that are not too tight, but that have room around the leg, right? So that's what you want to look for, or a really nice dress that works as well, right? So I hope the ladies sort of understand and get that. And when we have a picture of a guy in the photo here, even though we're talking about ladies, which is a good transition into talking about what the guys can wear, right? So a full suit, you can never go wrong with that, right? And of course, you want your suit to be dark colors, black, navy blue, right? A dark gray. So you don't want to wear the white suit. You don't want to wear, a pink suit. You want to wear a dark colored suit because of the context of the event, right? Those suits, those colors would work for other events, but not for a recruitment fair where you're meeting with professionals, right? So we see a picture here of two gentlemen in their suits, jacket, tie, and their shirts. If you don't have a suit, guys, you can opt out of that. I would say definitely you want to be wearing a tie, right? Without the tie, it will look a bit too casual, right? So you definitely want to include a tie in your um, dress code when you're getting ready to come for the recruitment fair. In terms of colors, again, the same thing applies. You want to go on the darker, well, I said that already. You want to wear those dark colors. You want to make sure your trousers match your shoes, right? So if you're wearing, um, black trousers or navy blue trousers, then black shoes. And if you're wearing more of a khaki soft pants, then you want to wear the brown shoes. And I just want to say as well, a long sleeve shirt is definitely what you want to do. You don't want to wear a short sleeve shirt with your tie. You want to make sure you're wearing a long sleeve shirt. In terms of socks, you want to make sure you're wearing dress socks and not gym socks, right? Attention to those details are really important. And you want to make sure your belt matches your shoe as well, right? My personal advice in terms of um, a look that works tends to work for the guys in terms of the shirt. Like I would stay away from like a loud plaid print. Um, a safe route would be solid color. I think pastels look really nice, and you have your matching tie, right? So like if you were to wear a light a light purple, like a lilac purple shirt and like a dark purple tie with black trousers, black trousers, black shoes, black leather belt, something like that. You can't go wrong with that. Or a crisp white shirt and a black tie or a silver tie. You can't go wrong with something like that as well. Just, the pictures that I'm sharing here is a good example of that. And of course, again, in terms of hairstyle, whether it's locks, same rule for the ladies apply. You just want to make sure it's neat. If you have long hair, just make sure it's pulled back in a bun. Guys, I know some guys have their hair long. It's fine. Just make sure that it's neat, it's professional, right? Even this picture of this gentleman here, he has an afro. It's a pretty high afro, but it's a neat afro, right? So you just want to make sure with the hairstyles that it looks neat and tidy. Guys, it's really competitive, so you really want to put your best foot forward, right, when it comes to the dress code, and make sure that you really do look professional when you come to the recruitment fair. And I do want to say also, just for everyone, males and females, you want to make sure you iron your clothes, right? I've been, at recruitment fairs where students, I don't know, maybe they went to class first and they didn't want to go to class dressed up, so they shoved the shirts in their school bag, and then they took it out and they came to recruitment fair and the shirt was all wrinkled. You wanna figure out all of those logistics, right? Make sure your clothes is ironed, make sure you're looking neat, really pay attention to, all of those details, right? Really important. And if you are not professionally dressed, I want to say you will not be allowed to enter the recruitment fair, right? So if you come in jeans, right? If you come in leggings for trousers, you're not going to be allowed to enter into the recruitment fair, right? So you want to, if you come in sandals, slippers, you're not going to be able to enter the recruitment fair. So you want to make sure you'll have a little bit of time. It's a month away, right? Start kind of working out. Maybe you have an older sibling who's a similar size to you. You could borrow something from them. Maybe you can, you know, head to the mall. Maybe you already have the pants and the jacket. You just need a nice inner piece. So start, putting those things together and planning those things. Apollo is more business casual. So I would say that would be too casual for recruitment fair. You definitely want to go with a shirt, right? A long sleeve shirt. The guys, the long sleeve shirt is for the guys. The ladies could wear a nice top that's not necessarily long sleeved, but the guys, you definitely want to be in a long sleeve shirt. A turtleneck is possible, Kristen. I mean, it depends on how the entire look is being styled. I mean, the ladies definitely have much more room to do different things. I mean, it's hard to say. I mean, turtlenecks is usually well, I don't know. I was going to say it's usually a sweater type material, but not necessarily. It depends on the fabric and all those different things. But I mean, it's possible. Just remember that elevated professional look that I was talking about. You're literally dressing to impress, right? So you just want to make sure that it is that elevated professional wear look. An open toe heel, again, it really depends on what it looks like. Some open toe shoes look more like partying shoes, whereas some open toe shoes could be a little bit better. I know people are on budgets, and you know, to go out and buy everything new will not be a possibility for everyone. I really can't say with the open toe shoe unless I see it. A peep toe shoe could definitely work. I would say that much. Um, not sure about the open toe shoe. It depends on what it looks like. So if you want to send a picture, you could go ahead. We could give you some advice. Um, okay, so we are moving on, right? Uh, One of the things that you would want to work with is a resume. Now, I do have to say, more and more applications are online. People are sharing. Um, well, actually, no, that's the hard copy. Sorry. Applications are more and more online. So having a hard copy resume, it's still good to work with a few copies, but having the resume itself is really important. Whether you're going to be handing it or emailing it to the recruiter, but this is a really key part of the whole job hunting process, right? So just for your information, two types of resumes: a chronological resume, right? This is the resume that most people use, right? And it organizes your information according to dates, outlining your work experience, education in reverse chronological order. There's also something called a functional resume, and that's organized according to skills and experience, usually more mature um, people with uh, longer work experience, like 20 years type of work experience, would use a functional resume. But just sharing for your information, I'm going to kind of speed through this. This is a chronological resume, and that's the one that I'm going to be focusing on. This is the functional resume where there is experience, where there's more of a focus on experience versus the way the chronological resume is organized, right? But like I said, our focus is going to be on the chronological resume. And I have one up here to share with you guys. We're going to go through this as a basic classic resume layout. You can't go wrong with a layout like this. There are other resume layouts out there, right? But this is a classic one. I know a lot of students do their resumes on Canva, which is something that I don't recommend just because there's so many choices on Canva and there's so many ways to make the wrong choice that it's just better to stick to um, starting on a blank sheet in Word, right? So just bear that in mind. But the key thing about a resume layout that you'll want to to be thinking of when your resume is finished, it must be readable. The sections must be clear, right? The recruiters should not be kind of like searching for information. Like it should jump out at them, right? Because recruiters only spend a few seconds on your resume. So you really want to make sure that it's neat, it's easy to read, the different sections are clear so they could immediately see, okay, volunteer experience, okay, education. They could immediately see all of those things, right? So we're going to start from the top of the resume, the header. I actually would make this name a bit bigger, but that's okay. Um, you want to include important information, your name, your address, which is optional. And a lot of people are opting out these days to not have their address, right? And that's perfectly within your rights. Um, of course, if you do get hired, whether it's even if it's a vacation internship, you will have to share your address at that point. But on the resume itself, it's not necessary, right? You must have your contact number and your email address. And Sabrina will remember this, but years ago, we had a student who kept calling us, asking us, if they sent out their resume for vacation employment opportunities and how they're not getting any phone calls. And we kept on saying, yes, we're sending out your resume. And we've sent it out on a number of occasions. And eventually, Sabrina checked the resume and the resume was missing the phone number. And whoever the um whoever the recruiters were, they couldn't be bothered to send an email. They were cold calling. So they were calling. So that's how they missed out. So things like that, I mean, it might seem obvious to say it, but don't forget to put your phone number. And I want to say, make sure you have a professional voicemail. Once you start job hunting, expect to get calls perhaps from unknown numbers. I want to say right now, when we call out using our work phones, it comes off as a private number to the person who we're calling. So you wanna, if you don't answer private numbers, you probably during your job hunting period, you probably do want to. You want to make sure you have a professional voicemail. I remember one time calling students for student assistant jobs for semester employment, and the voicemail was, you know what to do after the beep. Well, I never did what I was supposed to do. I hung up the phone, right? So you don't want to have those type of voicemail messages, right? So you want to make sure if you do have a voicemail, it's professional, or you could just opt to not have one. Lots of people don't, so that's fine as well. So just make sure that those things are put in place. And of course, a lot of you all know this already, but I'm going to say it again. You want to make sure you have a professional email address, which is usually a version of your first and last name at, whichever email um, provider you choose to use. In this case, for this example, it is Gmail, right? Also, something that you are definitely going to want to have by the time you are graduating, some of you already have it, is a LinkedIn URL. That is something that you can include in your header as well. It could probably fit right here. So you definitely want to have a LinkedIn URL as part of your resume. And as part of your job hunting process, you definitely need to be on LinkedIn, right? So that covers your header, right? So the next part of the resume under the header would be the objective. Some people have a profile. So you do either or, right? Some people um, put both. I don't know why, but you either put an objective or you put a profile. By the time you graduate, the profile is where you want to be, right? A profile is better written when the person has some experience under their belt and they can talk about what they have to offer, right? So it's a very specific, it's very individual, it's very specific, right? So you try to stay away from generic terms like hardworking, um, motivated. You try to stay away from generic stuff, strong communication, strong written and oral communication skills. Those are really common things that I see all the time on profiles. You want to be more specific about the skills that you have, right? Maybe you did an internship already and you want to say, you know, work experience in the field where used my XYZ skill set, right? So you want to be specific in the profile, and you want to definitely in the profile say what you have to offer, right? If you don't have as much experience or you don't have any experience at all, and don't worry about that, everybody has to start somewhere, and that's the whole point of getting an internship. You use an objective, right? So in the objective, you're focusing more on the fact that, as this example states, intern trainee position, focusing on research in neuropsychology and children with neuropsychological disorders. So you're basically saying you're looking for experience, right? You're looking to gain experience, you're looking to grow. You could inject a couple of your personal qualities, um, like say maybe personal qualities like maybe say like adaptable. You could put one or two of those points, but I mean, the truth is you don't have experience and this is the shot that you're taking to get experience. And so the objective is more of you're trying to get that experience. But I want everybody here, right? First year, second year students, third year returning. I want one of your career goals to be by the time you're in final year and ready to graduate, you will have enough experience to build a profile, right? So that's something to work towards. So, can we put a picture of ourselves on your resume? No, I wouldn't recommend putting a picture. That's what the LinkedIn is for. The LinkedIn is where they'll see a photo of you, professional photo of you. But you want to use as much of the real estate on your page of your resume. You want to devote that to your skills and what you bring to the table. So you definitely don't want to use a photo, but in this day and age where LinkedIn is now a part of the job hunting process, they'll definitely see a picture of you when they visit your LinkedIn profile. So that's definitely going to happen. They're definitely going to see you. And that's the place for them to see you. Right. So under education, you want to put this. Like I said, you want to start in reverse chronological order and you want to put the most recent thing first. Recruiters want to see where you are right now, and then they could look back to see where you're coming from, right? So everybody here is at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, right? Even though you haven't gotten your degree as yet, still put it in. A lot of people feel like they can't put it in a resume because they're still in the process of. But that's okay. When you say 2018 to present, that reflects I don't have it yet, right? But I'm working towards it. And that's fine. Even if in the end you decide to switch degrees or, you know, do something different, in that moment, you are currently pursuing your degree. So you want to put University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, Trinidad. The reason why this person has Trinidad is because I believe they're originally from Tobago, right? But if you are from Trinidad, you don't need to put Trinidad, right? You can just put St. Augustine. That goes for like regional students as well. Even in the header where they have like 868, for example, only if it's outside. if you're applying to something outside of Trinidad or outside of where you're from, where you originally your address, your residence, that's when you'll put 868 and that's when you'll put Trinidad. But if it's locally, then you can just put University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, right? And then you put the degree, BSc Psychology. You don't have to write it out. Remember, this is like recruiters, they're not spending too much time. So it has to be like bachelor's. I mean, they just say BSc Psychology, great. If you have a minor, you could put a comma, you could put minor, and then you could say what the minor is, right? What I'm about to say is a little bit controversial among I don't know, resume critiquing professionals, but I'm going to say in our university context, I would encourage you all to put your GPA just because our experience has told us, like companies, they always ask for GPA. And I see the question in the chat. They always ask for the GPA, whether it's graduate and even vacation employment. So I would say if you have a GPA of 3.0 and above, when you're sending your resume to us through our recruitment opportunities, I would say put the GPA in. If you're doing your own, if you're sending it out for an ad that you saw online or any papers or something like that, I will leave it up to you and your judgment. But I would definitely say in our context, putting the GPA is helpful. If it's 3.0 and up, you can put again, comma, capital G, capital P, capital A, colon, and then 3 point whatever. If it's under 3 point, just don't say it, just don't put it, and that's fine as well. And I want to say companies, um, it doesn't necessarily have to be a deal breaker for all companies, right? Even the companies that are asking for it, um, it doesn't necessarily have to be a deal breaker. If we send out a job ad, and I want to tell a little story. We sent out a job ad for a company who had a vacation employment opportunity. And in that job ad, they asked for a particular GPA and up, right? One of the students at the time thought that was unfair and was upset because they wanted to apply for the job, but they didn't have the GPA. They wrote the HR manager, the recruiting manager of that company, and blasted them for asking for GPA, whatever, and up. The recruitment manager wrote us and told us, please talk to the student. This is not how you address people. The email was very unprofessional and disrespectful, right? And the long and the short of the story is all that student had to do was send the email, send the resume to the recruiting manager and ask to be considered, even though the GPA was not what it was asking for in the job description. The recruiting manager would then either say, no, we have to stick to X, Y, and Z, or they might say, okay, we will put your resume for consideration, right? So that's how you work around things like that. Just a little story. Um, you just always want to maintain your professionalism, right? So that concludes the University of the West Indies section. In this person's case, they didn't do CAPE, they did a certificate in business management and technology. So they put the school that they did it at, the location. And when you put location, you don't have to put the exact address, you just have to put the town. And again, because this person is applying in Trinidad, they just decided, well, let me put Tobago in case they don't know where Signal Hill is, right? But again, if you were if you lived in Trinidad from Trinidad applying in Trinidad, or if you live in St. Lucia from St. Lucia applying in St. Lucia, you don't have to put St. Lucia, you don't have to put Tobago, right? And you put certificate in business management technology. If it was CAPE, I just want to say, if it was CAPE at the same school, you only need to put the name of the secondary school once, and you'll put the entire period from Form 1 to Form 6, right? And then you can put CAPE in all caps, and you can either put the 5 subjects, you can either say 5 subjects, CAPE, 5 subjects, or you can put your core CAPE courses. So that would exclude That would exclude communication studies and Caribbean, the other Cape course that everybody does. That would exclude the two mandatory courses. So like let's say your core Cape courses was sociology, law, and economics, and you can just put CSEC, sociology, law, economics. And I think at this internship level, I think it is helpful to list the Cape subjects that you did, right? So that's what that would look like, right? And then you would skip a line and then you would put 9 CSEC subjects. You don't need to say what the CSEC subjects that you did. You don't need to list them. And also, another important thing you would have noticed, you don't need to say what your grades were for CSEC or for CAPE, right? The GPA is the only grade that might be interesting to recruiters. To some recruiters, definitely in secondary school, they don't want to know how many ones, twos, threes. They don't want to know that, right? So you can leave that out, and that's going to help you to keep. That's going to help you to keep the resume to one page, which is ideal, right? If you have relevant information that fits on 2 pages, that's okay. But ideally, one page is a good place to be, right? Can we specify what CAPE subjects and university courses we did if it pertains to the job? You can list, like I said, you could list, I think it's a good idea. Year one, year two students, year three students, you could list. For internships, you can list the CAPE subjects, the core ones. Um, and you can also list university courses as well. Um, the way you could do the university courses, or one way you can do it, is you can create a subheading under psychology. Skip a line, you could create a subheading called relevant courses, and you could probably list 3 courses, 3 courses, maybe four. Anything after four will be pushing it. Relevant courses that you think um, you want to share with a recruiter that you completed, right? So that's definitely something you can do. I would also say, anyway, when I get there, I'll talk about it. There's another way you could talk about your courses lower down in your resume as well. Okay. Right. If you have tertiary level education, you don't need to put secondary school education. I would say in our context, I would say recruiters still look at that. But I mean, as you go along in your career, you can definitely drop the secondary school information. But I would say in our context right now, pursuing your degree, I would say even after you finish your degree and you're a recent graduate, you still want to share your secondary school information. Right. So you put biology, chemistry, and environmental sciences. Yes. If you did a language, right, at CSEC, maybe you did Spanish and you're really good at it, and maybe you're keeping up with it, you could put 9 CSEC subjects inclusive of Spanish, right? But just remember anything on your resume is fair game in an interview. So if you're not super confident about it, then you can leave it out, right? Um, should you put references? No, you don't need to put references. You can either leave it out altogether when you reach that stage in the process, like if you've been called for an interview, right? And that's what a resume is supposed to do. That's the purpose of a resume, to get you an interview. If you've gotten to that stage and they're interested in you, then they will ask you for your references and then you will share your references, right? And I would say a good reference would be one of your lecturers, or if you worked somewhere, maybe your former supervisor would be a good reference, right? So that is what you would that's an example of 2 good references. Or if you're part of a active um NGO organization and you're doing good work, maybe the head of the organization at NGO, you can and they know you've been contributing and doing different things, they could also be a reference as well, right? Okay, so I think that's it for questions so far. So I'm going to move on to the next part of it. I'm seeing work permits for regional students. That may be a consideration. Things have changed so much. We don't have an update on um, what we do for regional students. Um, I know we're waiting to get some information in writing, right? But I know if UE has vacation internship opportunities, and when I say if UE, I mean like if the university is hiring students themselves for vacation internships, they would do whatever is necessary um, from a legal perspective with work permits and whatnot for regional students, right? But outside of UE and the majority of internships are external to the campus, I would say. So outside of UE, I'm not 100% sure. We are looking to see if we get some clear instructions in writing where that is concerned, right? But it has happened in the past within within the legal frameworks that this country has. So it's not totally ruled out. Okay, so moving on to volunteer experience. Sorry, I shifted the slide there. So this particular person doesn't have work experience, but they have volunteer experience and they've developed some skills doing their volunteer work. So they are showcasing that on the volunteer experience, right? So I just want to say, if you don't have work experience, volunteer experience can be used if you have that, right? So they did a volunteer stint at, well, they did it at Adult Developing and Aging Lab TT, right? And key in this part of the resume is how you express your responsibilities, right? So you always want to start with a verb, and two reasons for this. One is it just brings the resume to life. They call it power verbs some places. It brings the resume to life, and also just keeping that information about the recruiter not spending too much time on looking at your resume. It gets straight to the point. It's an action word, transcribed, operated, entered. So, and it kind of prevents you from having like a long rambling sentence where the recruiter have to be searching like, okay, what, what are you trying to say you did here? So that's why you start with the verb, right? So it gets straight to the point. It makes your resume pop, right? And I want to say, if it's in the past, it would be past tense, and this person's resume is actually not correct. If you're presently working, it would be present continuous, right? So you want to think about the skills that you're using, and you want to you want to construct that in this section, right? So transcribed data operated SPSS software. Another way you can think about it is think about the value that you are adding, right? By doing the work that you've done, right? So for example, if you if you enter data using SPSS for a specific study, you could kind of finish that thought to kind of say for a study that allowed um for X, Y, and Z that, you know, kind of saying what was the end point, if that makes sense. Um, so that you're not just saying the skill that you use, but you're also saying how you added value, how that skill then contributed to the organization achieving whatever goals, or how it contributed to, if the organization is doing good work in the community, how that then translated into this thing being achieved um to for the betterment of whatever, right? So you can think about it also, not just the skills, but you could also think about it in terms of how what you did added value. Another way to think about it, to elevate your responsibilities, is you can think about quantifying it, right? Not every single thing is quantifiable, but like if you worked at a call center, for example, and you dealt with over 100 queries a day, you can say something like, resolved successfully 100 plus, queries every day, or, resolved over 100 queries and frequently, surpassed daily quotas that were established by the organization or something like that, right? So quantifying it also elevates your resume. Well, this part of the resume, when you're talking about the skills, when you're talking about your responsibilities, right? So
True.
Naomi is asking a good question here. If you don't have work or voluntary experience, just leave it out. Definitely, if you don't have it, then how can you talk about it? There will be no section called work experience or volunteer experience. What I would say is lean on your experience as a student. If you have no work or volunteer, lean on your experience as a student. So you could put academic experience as a heading, or you could put um, projects and assignments, or you could even put if there's a if there's a if there was some significant coursework that you did that you think, I can highlight, some of the skills that I have. You could even put coursework as a um as a main heading, and maybe the name of the course as a subheading, and then a few bullets talking about using the same format with the verb, right? Just kind of saying, well, you wouldn't be able to, just kind of highlighting the skills that you used doing that, right? So if you don't have any work experience, volunteer experience, I'll say it again, we all have a UE experience basically as a student, doing group work, working on teams. Even if you're you do lab works, writing up labs, doing reports, using instruments accurately, things like that. Those are things you can say on your resume, right? And okay, so on to leadership skills. So these are just some other headings that you could potentially use, and everybody is going to be different, right? So everybody will obviously have the header, the objective, their education. Some people will have volunteer experience, some people might have work experience. These are just other examples, right? So if you're involved in different clubs on campus, I mean, you could put extracurricular activities as the heading, but let's say in all the different extracurriculars, all the different clubs you're in, let's say you are a board member, you're the secretary, you're the PRO, there's a pattern of leadership. Instead of putting extracurricular activities or clubs and associations, you could put leadership skills because that sells you even better, right? So that's just like a little tip for those of you all who are involved in a lot of club activities, extracurricular activities. If you have leadership roles in all of them and it's a pattern, you can actually have a heading called leadership skills. Some of you all have done really well in school. You all have scholarships. You all have been on the dean's list. You all could have a heading academic achievements and awards, for example. And then you can list those achievements and awards, right? Including those from secondary school, maybe not Form 1, Form 2, but like if you had awards at CSEC or CAPE, if you're in first year and second year in particular, I think that's fine. By the time you're in third year again, ready to graduate, fourth year again, ready to graduate, I would say secondary school stuff could be a little bit dated, but you can definitely share, if you have awards and that type of things, scholarships, honors, right? So Phoenicia asks if you have work experience but more volunteer experience, which would take priority? That's a really good question. Um, I mean, it depends, right? It could change depending on how you're tailoring your resume. But I would say if your volunteer experience is actually more robust than your work experience, or if your volunteer experience is more relevant than your work experience, let me put it that way, more relevant than your work experience, and your volunteer experience will take priority. So maybe your volunteer experience, let's use this example, it has a lot of research. And then maybe let's say your work experience was customer service rep um, at a store, right? All experience is good experience, but because your volunteer experience is actually more relevant, maybe you're looking for an opportunity in research, then you would definitely want to spend more time on your volunteer experience and less time on your work experience. Right now, sometimes in keeping in train with that question that was asked, sometimes we have different work experiences, right? And some work experiences are more relevant than others. And sometimes, because you have to list your resume in reverse chronological order, um, the work experience that comes first is not the most relevant one. But you want the recruiter to read the work experience that is most relevant. You want that to be first because going back to that, only a few seconds looking at your resume, they're going to start from the top, go down. You want them to see your most relevant work experience first. In a situation like that, you can create a heading called relevant work experience and list all your relevant work experience in reverse chronological order. And then you can have another section, additional work experience, and list the remaining work experiences in um, reverse chronological order, right? So just a little hack there in terms of making sure the work experience that you want to start with is at the top. Also, I would say even take that approach with the order in which you bullet your work experience, the different responsibilities. So put the most, you know, put the most impressive one first, come down, right? So that's what they see first when they read the resume. So to continue, to continue with the different sections of your resume, additional skills and certificates, this, you know, this person did a co-curricular course, you can put that. They did a executive transition workshop. You can put that. Some of you all in second year and might be doing ETP. It's definitely something you can put on your resume. Um, if you've done online courses, you can definitely include that on your resume as well. So just kind of sharing different examples of other types of sections that you could create in your resume, which will be different for different people because of your experiences, right? Maybe you are someone who is involved in sports, right? And um, you've played nationally, maybe you've traveled for sport. You can create a section that focus, that highlights those things and maybe highlights the skills that you built from those experiences, like working on a team and just being culturally aware because of international travel. You could create a section like that. Just remember to just stick to the formula with the verb, and then you're just explaining the skill that you've developed um, from participating in whatever um, the skill that you developed in whatever you were participating in. And that's why I'm going to make a plug for not being too much of a, what's the word? Too much of a person who's, I know some of us could be homebodies. I'm definitely a person like that, but experiences um, is what gives us the skills and helps us to grow and develop, right? So you definitely want to put yourself out there and be involved so that you can gain experiences, so that you can gain skills, and these skills will then become things that you can offer to an employer who is, looking to hire somebody for vacation or for graduates, right? So computer skills, important. And just what I was saying before in terms of listing things, in terms of the most relevant, this person is looking for a research type job. So they put their SPSS skills first, and then they put Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Now, if you don't have an official certificate saying you can use Word, that's okay. You use Word all the time to do your assignments, to write your essays, to send, So that's fine, right? Similarly with Excel PowerPoint, you can say you can still list it, right? Some people feel more comfortable by putting Microsoft Word Basic, Excel Basic. If you want to kind of give a sense of what it is, where you are with the program, you can do that. But just remember to be honest, right? It might be kind of hard to gauge where you are if you don't know the full scope of what a program can do, but it's still good to list um, skills that you would have, the different software that you're familiar with and you can use, right? And this is not limited to the Microsoft programs that we're familiar with. If you use other programs as well, um, or other applications, like Google has a lot of applications, Google Forms, Google Sites. If you've built a website using Google Sites, and you could go ahead and say, I'm familiar with this. Um, Canva is a popular one. Maybe you use it to post, to design flyers when, being PRO in your club or make social media posts. You can put that as well, right? If you have a lot of programs, I would say you probably want to group them, right? So group them into like categories and name it, and then create subcategories. So you might have research and you might put SPSS R. You might have Microsoft and you put Word, Excel. You might have graphic and then you put Canva, Adobe Photoshop, Lighthouse, or whatever. So group it so that, again, to go back to that point of, it makes it easier to read because the recruiter is only spending a few minutes, right? So when you categorize and group it, it makes it easy for the recruiter to say, okay, they have they have computer skills in this general area: graphic design, post-production, um, normal office administrative computer programs, research programs. If you're an IT student, you would have a lot of programs, right? You would have languages, you would have different things. So you want to group it, say what all the languages are, say all the different things. You all would know better than me, right? Right. So Jelani just asked that question, and I think I answered it, Jelani. You could let me know if I did a good job or if you need me to explain further. But we do need to move on. Okay, awesome. Right. So that is more or less a basic resume. And I would say we are in the process of scheduling resume critique. So look out for an email. We'll be sharing dates. Some of it will be virtual, some of it will be in person, right? So look out for that so you all could put together your resume in the meantime. It's going to be coming out sooner than later. So you all could work on your resumes if you all don't have one, and then you all could work with it for a critique. And we have student facilitators who will be able to give you all some additional tips on how to make your resume even better, right? So moving on, just some quick resume. Don't something that is quite common. People like to put the word resume at the top of the page. No need to do that. Don't need to date the resume. You wrote it on March the 12th. No need to do that. Don't put your date of birth. Not necessary. You don't have to put your ID number, height or weight. None of these things are necessary in a resume. I mean, some jobs, like, if it's security, a flight attendant, there are height and weight and age restrictions, but generally, most jobs don't require this information. This is not, you're not looking for a partner, so you don't have to put your marital status and you don't have to put your religion either. And we touched on this already, no photo on your resume. They will see you on LinkedIn, right? Just one quick tip where LinkedIn is concerned, you want to make sure you have a professional photo. And that's going to be different for different people depending on the industry that you're in, right? So you want to make sure your LinkedIn page has you, you're in it's a professional photo. So you're in a suit, you're in a nice dress, right? You want to make sure that's your LinkedIn photo. Some people, if you work on a farm, maybe a picture of you on the farm in your overalls, that could work, right? If that's what your LinkedIn page is all about, you and, you know, taking care of livestock, that's fine. So just know for which industry. Also know in terms of your personal brand what that photo would look like because we could all take a professional photo, but you know, what what is the photo? Think about it, right? In terms of you could search like on Pinterest, professional poses. Maybe you want a photo of you, you know, looking joyful. Maybe you because you're a happy-go-lucky person. So yes, you're in your professional suit, but you want to exude your personality in the photo. So not something to take lightly, right? You want to make sure you have a good professional photo, but you don't need that photo to be on your resume, right? References, we talked about this already, so I'm gonna continue. Generic objective. I should really say generic profile. You don't want a generic profile. You don't want a generic objective either. So both. You don't want a generic profile or objective. You want to be specific to you. Right. Optional additions. I spoke about this already. So other things that you could put in your resume. If you have languages, maybe some of you all are doing these certificates courses in CLL, Spanish A, French A1, the different certifications. And I mean, I can't stress it enough. I want to say every time a recruiter asks for somebody with language, so it's hmm, how to put this? A lot of times they want business with Spanish, for example. And it's like the hardest thing to find. Like you put yourself at a serious competitive advantage if you can learn a language. I mean, it's not for everybody, but I mean, I really strongly recommend learning a language, starting with Spanish because of where we are, geographically speaking, and there are other languages as well, right? Maybe even, I don't know what, Mandarin, maybe even Mandarin, you know, just being multilingual. And English speakers, because English is what they say, the lingua franca, like everybody can speak English. We feel like we don't need to learn another language, but it really is useful. You can put your interests. Those are other sections that you could have in your resume. Right, so some extra tips. So, like I said earlier, a lot of times resumes are being sent digitally. But if you do share your resume with a recruiter, you want to make sure it's on resume paper. So, resume paper, just to kind of describe, it is a little bit thicker than regular paper that you would know and use and grown accustomed to. It's a little bit thicker and it has like a linen texture. Like if you look at it closely, it almost looks like it's linen, right? That is resume paper. Don't let anybody in the stationery store sell you anything else but that, right? Sometimes they sell all kinds of different strange types of paper and tell you it's resume paper, like marble, like paper with like a marble finish and say it's resume paper. That is not resume paper. And if you're going to use resume paper, I just want to recommend you use white or like a really pale gray or really pale blue, right? You can find it in the stationery store like Charon's or one of them. You should be able to find it. They sell them in a pack. The last time I bought resume paper was a while ago. It was like 30 something dollars, and you get like a few, like how many, boy? Like maybe 20 or 30 sheets. I can't remember. And you don't want to print your resume back and front. You want to print it. Well, if you have 2 pages, you want to print it on 2 pages, right? So just bear that in mind. Right. You want to try as far as possible to keep your resume to 2 pages, to 1 page, sorry. And you want to make sure you keep your resume. You don't want to fold it, right? So you want to make sure and keep it, in a nice folder or portfolio for when you are at the recruitment fair or going to the job interview. You want to make sure you don't have any errors, no typos, your formatting is consistent. You don't want to be like point, you don't want to have some of your main headings underlined and some not underlined. So you just want to make sure and fix errors because it is a reflection of who you are. And if you have a lot of errors in your resume, it might send a message that you're careless or, you know, not, you don't take your time to do things well. So you want to make sure that your resume doesn't have basic errors. I mean, you could get cream paper, but I wouldn't recommend the cream colored one. That's just my personal preference. Yeah. For the recruitment fair, even for the interview, if you do get called for a job interview outside of recruitment fair, having several copies of your resume is always a good idea, but definitely for recruitment fair, you want to have several copies, right? That's important because obviously you'll be sharing it. You want to have multiple copies. So I just want to share some recruitment fair tips, right? Things that are good to know specific to recruitment fair. You want to plan which companies you want to visit. So like I said earlier, there is a booklet. So when you get that booklet in whatever form it comes, you want to go through the booklet, look for the companies. Some companies are not going to be for you because they're not looking for the skills that you have, right? Or the degree that you have. And that is fine. But I do want to make a plug and say, and as much as I try as far as possible to let companies know, sometimes the company might say, okay, we're looking for these for X, Y, and Z degrees. And I might say to the company, that's fine. There are also these degrees, they also could go with the degrees that you just called, and they will say, okay, right? But let's just say, for example, in your recruitment fair booklet, a company says management studies, right? But you're a student doing leadership and management. You can still target that company. For whatever reason, it didn't say leadership and management, but you can still target a company if you're not seeing your exact degree, depending on what degree you are seeing, right? Now, let's say you're doing, um, let's say you're doing psychology and you're minoring in marketing and you see in your recruitment fair booklet marketing. You can still target that company, the psychology major with the minor in marketing. Okay, so it's not as black and white as okay, I'm only allowed to visit companies that only have my degree. And then if you don't see a degree, you could still go up to a company and talk to them if it's a company that you like, right? And maybe you could say, will there be any openings in my field in the future? That's a type of conversation you could have as well, right? But in terms of companies, you want to plan, obviously, the companies that do have the opportunities for you. You want to go through the booklet and look for those companies, right? You want to prepare the resume to fit each company. And what I mean by that is you want to target the resume. Right now, the recruitment fair booklet does not tell you specifically what the job is. They'll tell you they're looking for degrees in economics. And I mean, it's something that we're trying to shift, but sometimes change takes time, right? So you can still um, you can still target a company based on um, like when we talk about the resume having relevant information, right? So let's say you're trying to fit your resume to one page, right? And you want to fit only relevant information, right? And let's say a particular company, they do a lot of social outreach work with sports and community, right? They do a lot of social outreach. And let's say you have a lot of extracurricular activities, right? You can't include all of them because your resume is going to be 3 pages long and you're trying to keep it to one page. But let's just say a portion of some of the activities you do is related to sports, right? And because you know that this specific company has an interest in doing work in sports and communities, they sponsor a lot of things, clubs, kids playing sports or whatever, because you know that and you are maybe a coach in a little league team or you are actively involved in sports in, different aspects, you would then choose to put that in your resume. But in another resume for another company that has no interest in that, you might leave it out, right? Because like I said, you have so much, if you are that person who has so many different things and you have to pick and choose what to keep and what not to keep, and when you want to stick to what's relevant, then that's how you prepare your resume to fit each company. That's what I mean when I say that. So you're not making up something that doesn't exist, right? If you have something that matters with a company and it's relevant for that company, you can add it, right? If not, then, you just, create your resume as best you can, right? Okay. Okay, will undergraduate students be able to target these companies? Yes, yes. It's- This is for undergraduate and graduate students, but I would say if you're doing a certificate and you don't have a degree, or you're doing N1, you don't have a degree, then the baseline minimum requirements is pursuing an undergraduate degree, right? Will there be recruitment options for law students? I would say to answer a question, I would say yes. And the reason why I'm saying yes is not because I know that there is a position where they're asking for somebody pursuing a degree in law, but yes, because there may be opportunities to work in a department where they might be. So some companies, sorry to cut, some companies might say all faculties because they're open to hiring anybody, right? I find a lot of I I find I come across a lot of law students who only want a law experience, right? And I just want to say, in terms of career wise, if you know what you want to do career wise, then you can maybe open to maybe working in HR, especially if industrial law is something that you see yourself doing in the future, right? Or maybe you don't know what you want to do in the future because, like I said in the beginning of the presentation, a good reason to do internships is career planning, right? So if as a law student, maybe you work in it's not specifically law, but you work in a company where you get exposed to a particular industry, you might like that industry and you might decide, okay, I want to specialize in that type of law, right? So don't necessarily be too restrictive in thinking I can only do an internship at a law firm or at a firm's legal department, right? There may be opportunities outside of a firm's legal department, and you might get to work in another department and then about intellectual property rights. And then you might be like, okay, well, I think I might be interested in this as a law student. And a lot of law students go on to do a lot of things outside of the law. So don't be don't be too restrictive. There may be, haven't gone through all the companies and what they are looking for as yet, but there may be some that are directly asking for law, but there may be some that will be just, they're open to all different faculties and you may be able to apply. Or even if it's an HR, they're looking for human resource degree, but as a law student, you might, like I said, you might be interested in human resources. You could maybe approach a company and pitch and say, well, I know you're looking for HR, but I'm really interested in um, the field from an industrial point of view, and I would really love the opportunity, even though I'm a law student, blah, blah, blah. So you never know, right? So be open. That's why I say the recruitment fair booklet is a guide, but there are ways to kind of maneuver depending on what it is they're asking for, right? So I hope that answers that question. Have extra generic resumes. So you have, so when you go to the booklet, you see the companies, you know that they're companies that you absolutely want to target. They have, they're looking for what you believe you have, and you're gonna target them, talk to them further, and you've prepared your resume. You have your ABC company resume, you have your XYZ company resume, and you know you're gonna target them. But then there may be companies that you're not as interested in, and you just have a generic resume that's not as targeted. You're still going to visit them, share a resume. If something comes of it, and maybe your other top opportunities fell through, maybe one of those opportunities will come to pass, come to fruition. We will be sharing the booklets. We're still not sure what, in what form, but we will be sharing the booklets with you guys. Sorry. So, like I said, work with a professional folder to keep your resume. And I also want to say at a recruitment fair, companies give away a lot of goodies, right? They work with what you call it, promotional items, right? So you're gonna get pens, you're gonna get cups, water bottles. So there's usually at least one company that's giving out tote bags, and you could just dump everything in the tote bag, but just something to be aware of. Your hands, you want your hands to be free. You don't want your hands to be like you're holding the water bottle and the flash drive from company A and B, and then you have your portfolio and then you have your book bag or your handbag. So just in case there is no company giving out tote bags, something to think of, a bag, an attractive bag, not a plastic bag from True Value or Massey, but a decent looking bag, maybe a tote bag that you have at home from another, you could probably just fold it, have it there just in case you need to put in all the different. A swag bag is basically what I'm saying. You want to work with that so that you could put all the different stuff because I mean that's a cool thing about recruitment fair in person. When it was virtual, there was none of that. But in person, you'll get the water bottles, the cups, the pens, the flash drives. So just to have something to put it in, you could probably work with something like that, right? You want to dress professionally. We spoke about that. You want to develop a strategy. What do I mean by that? Well, let's just say company X is your number one company. Like, this is the place you want to do your internship in. This is the place where you want to work after you graduate. I mean, you probably name your firstborn child after this company. Like, you really love this company. That would not be the first company you would visit, right? You want to warm up first, right? So that's what I mean by developing a strategy. You want to warm up, maybe practice on a few companies that you're not that interested in, to practice in terms of introducing yourself and that type of thing. You want to do that first. And then once you've built your confidence after talking to a few companies, you're like, okay, I could do this. This is pretty easy. Then you can go to your top companies and speak with them. Another strategy I would say is recruitment fairs from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., right? I mean, if you absolutely have no choice and you have to skate in there at quarter to 2 or 1:30, so be it. But recruiters are going to be tired. They would have been talking all day. You just talk to maybe 10 recruiters, 15 recruiters. They talk to hundreds of students. So at the end of the recruitment fair, they're going to be tired. They're not going to be as attentive. So you probably want to try to get to the fair earlier if you can. If your schedule doesn't permit, well then, you make the best with what, you have at your disposal. But that would be strategizing. Going to the fair early, it opens at 9, so you probably want to get there the earlier the better. But if you have a class, well then, so be it. But try to get there earlier and not, too late when the recruiters are really tired. So you want to develop a strategy, and there may be other strategies based on your needs and what it is you want to achieve. You want to be able to kind of sit down and think it through and be like, okay, how am I going into this recruitment fair? Right? Okay. So is it fair sort of sit and talk similar to interview, or is it more like, hey, here's my resume and move on? It depends. We have limited space, so it will definitely be standing. But some companies, I do know there's one company that is making arrangements with us to do, this is a regional company, it's a company from Barbados. So they're flying in and they want to interview students. So they have a lot of opportunities across the board, by the way. They want to interview students. So they will, they're going to be conducting interviews, but they're not going to conduct it at the fair. So they'll be conducting it in a separate classroom, right? So in that case, it will be an interview. Ooh, yeah, if they're doing internships and graduate, yes. So in that case, it will be an interview. So I would say just be ready, right? Some of them you're going to be talking to them, standing up. Some of them you might actually get an interview on the day of the fair, right? So I would say just be ready for both and don't kind of, here's my resume and move on. Even, that moment when you are talking to that company, don't have it, don't think of yourself, well, I'm one of hundreds or thousands of students you've spoken to today. What does it matter? Don't think of it like that. Like you have to really think of it like I am the leading character. What leading character energy? Is that what people say? You are the leading character in your movie. You have to star when you talk to this particular um recruiter, and you have to kind of be on, be at 10, be 10 out of 10, 100, yes, main character energy. Be 100% when you talk to a company. Don't think of yourself as, I'm just one of hundreds or thousands of students, right? Have the mindset from now, from the beginning, that I'm going to stand out from everybody else, right? Be prepared to talk, right? And you have to go up to companies and introduce yourself, right? Really, really important. And how you introduce yourself is also important. Just going to give you a few tips on that, right? You want to start off with who you are. You want to say who you are, maybe where you're from. And if you're involved in extracurricular activities, maybe you want to say that too, right? So my name is Nandi Mitchell, and I'm a second year student pursuing a degree in economics. I'm also the PRO of the Rotaract Club of Port of Spain West, right? So that is the intro, who you are, right? And then the next thing you want to do is you want to say what you do. And of course, you're talking about this in a professional context, right? So you might say, so after you introduce yourself, you might say something like, my coursework in economics has helped me realize that I'm deeply curious about how markets work and how investors make decisions. I created a mock portfolio using a stock simulator, and I've managed to realized an 8% increase in investments over the last year, right? So when you go into what I do, you talk about the skills that you have, right? So this person, this big version of me, did a mock portfolio on a stock trade market simulator. And by saying that they were able to get 8% increase in returns, they're talking about the skills that they have, right? Developing trading habits, skill set in managing trades and identifying trends and that type of thing. So the recruiter knows and can tell that already, right? You might also want to include like what are your values and what is your passion, right? So you're really passionate about um, stock market investment maybe, and demystifying the process to, you know, demystifying the process for regular people who may feel like, okay, you know. Um, so that's another way in terms of saying what you do, right? Talking about the skills that you have, talking about your values and what you're passionate about in the context of your career, professionalism, work, right? So you all see the importance of kind of knowing what it is you'll want to do career-wise. You kind of have to be thinking about that from now, right? And I mean, it's not set in stone. I mean, it could change, but you need to have something to tell recruiters at the recruitment fair, right? And you see how specific it is. It's not like this generic, well, I'm doing a degree in economics and I hope to work in a bank. You know what I mean? And you're a bank, so that's why I'm talking to you. That's not what you want to project, right? You want to be specific, right? And then you always want to end with what's my ask, right? So you might say, when I realized at UTC, this is a make believe. I'm not saying UTC is coming, but just because we keep in with the stock example, when I realized that UTC was coming to recruitment fair and had internship opportunities for economics students, I wanted to find out more about the specific internship and what it entails and how I can go about applying, right? So you always end with that question, right? So, like I was saying earlier, the recruitment fair booklet does not break down the job description, right? So that's a question you can ask if you see a company asking for your degree or your area of study, right? You can ask, can I learn more about what this internship is? Or if it's a, you know, some companies they call it like they have an internship program. Are there any you want to end with a question. Are there any um developmental elements to your internship program built into your internship program apart from work experience? And they might say, yeah, sure, we pair students with a mentor and they get mentored throughout the vacation period, et cetera, et cetera. So you always want to end with a question, right? And you also want to include a request to connect, right? So you're going to share your email address, take their email address, get connected on LinkedIn, right? So you always want to make sure that there's a way to connect, right? When you're talking to the recruiter, especially if it's a company that you're really interested in, right? Um, what are some of the things to mention when introducing yourself? So you want to start off with who you are, right? So obviously you're going to tell them your name, what year you're in, what you're studying, right? What extracurricular activities you're involved in, if you are, right? So a little bit about yourself. That's the first part. And then the second part is what you do. So that's where now you talk about the skills that you have, right? You talk a little, but you're talking about it in the context of your career and being in a professional environment, right? So you talk about the skills that you have to offer, maybe a particular aspect, you know a particular industry that you're interested in, or a particular subcategory of an industry. So if it's accounting, maybe you're interested in you know, for a certain type of auditing, right? You all would know as you're pursuing your degree and you'll have done different courses, just like the example I used. This person doesn't have any work experience and they literally drew from a course that they are doing, right? So from their coursework, they realize that I really am passionate about finance and people. And I think, you know, growing up, my family never had, somebody to give them good financial advice and learning about all the things in finance. I want to be able to advise people about how to make sound financial decisions and become millionaires by 40. I don't know. And maybe it's a bank, maybe it's, you know. So you have to talk about career wise what you're interested in, and then you have to kind of marry that now with skills that you have to offer. My love for numbers, charts, figures. From doing whatever coursework, I realized that I'm really good at da, 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 blah, 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 blah. If it is you don't have work experience. If it is you have work experience, that's relevant to the job and the internship and, your career and the company you're talking about, then you could bring that up, right? Some of you are in second year. Maybe you had an internship last year. You you designed a program for students you design a training program for students to learn X, Y, and Z. And then you could say from that experience, being a sociology major, I really want to get into um, program design for young people in for different community outreach projects or something, right? So you talk about the skills that you use. So that's the second part of the introduction, right? What skills you use, what are your values, what you're passionate about in the context of career and the whole recruitment hiring process. And then your last thing is your ask, right? So you want to end on a question, and the question in this case might be, tell me more about your internship that you have for people who are pursuing a degree in this area, right? Or can we get connected? Is it possible to get connected? How can I share my resume with you? Something of that nature, where now you have spoken and now they are going to now respond and continue the conversation, right? Can you discuss salary at the internship? No, don't discuss salary at the internship. Not at that point. Um, I would say if you've been called for an interview, you've gone through the interview process, they really like you. But particularly for internships, it might be a bit distasteful because, you know, you really want a big part of internships is about getting experience. And that's not to say you should be exploited and work for next to nothing. But I would say at this point, I think compensation packages and salary discussions come with graduates' employment and um, that negotiation process for long-term employment. That's definitely important, right? So I don't want you to be shy to ask about salaries. Like when you're graduating, that's definitely part of the conversation. But in the case of the internship, um, I would say, especially not at the fair, that would not be the place to ask about compensation, right? Some internships are unpaid, but very, 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 very few. I don't know. I mean, they are rare, right? Most internships are paid, and most companies do um pay fairly, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about it. But yeah, I think compensation is definitely something for graduate long-term employment. That discussion, yeah. You want to network at the fair, so start following these people on LinkedIn. If it's a company that you are really interested in, you want to start following them on LinkedIn, start following the people who work at the company on LinkedIn, particularly if they work in the field that you are interested in. I would also say, even if you are unsuccessful this year, you might be successful the following year. And I would say, um, having done this for a really long time, a lot of it's people change, but they it tends to be the same person for a couple of years. So you never know. Right. So if you connect with somebody this year, you didn't get hired, you could reconnect with them the following year. Right. And those are questions that you can ask. Um, those are questions you could ask recruiters, like what do you look for in a student? What do you look for in a student when you're trying to hire for internships? So that if you're not hired, and if you maintain that connection, and let's say you don't get through, you can ask them, what is it you're looking for? I want to make sure I tick all the boxes next year because I'm coming back next year. I'm targeting you all again if I didn't get through. So you want to network, you want to maintain a connection, and LinkedIn, I would say, is definitely a good way to do that. Follow up with key recruiters. So this one is kind of tricky, but I would say maybe a couple weeks after the fair for those recruiters who you've gotten information from, like email address, LinkedIn, you can follow up and, kind of reach out and say, we spoke during the recruitment fair, I we had a really productive conversation. I'm really excited about um, the opportunity internship opportunity that you have, and I'm just reaching out to find out um, the next steps, or have you had the time to give my resume consideration? I would really love to hear from you. Looking forward to, positive feedback. But the thing about it is you can't do it too often. Um, you don't want to come across like doing it, hey, we spoke. You don't want to do it too often. I would say 2 weeks after recruitment fair, if you felt like you could reach out. Maybe they might say to you at the recruitment fair, if we're interested, we will reach out to you. But like if it was kind of open, then you can, reach out to them after 2 weeks. But it's a waiting game. It's a bit of a waiting game, right? Hopefully they will respond if you reach out to them on LinkedIn. But whatever you do, if you're reaching out, make sure it's professional, right? Do not, you know, keep it more on the formal side. Make sure your written communication is professional, and hopefully they will respond, and you won't and hopefully their response wouldn't make you feel like you have to reach out to them again and again and again and again, right? But it's good to reach out after maybe a couple of weeks. Right. So we spoke about recruitment fair, but at the beginning of my presentation, you remember there are two ways that you can access internship opportunities through our department. The second way is through our employment application, right? Our vacation employment application. So not every company comes to the recruitment fair. A lot of companies will just email us and tell us, well, send us a flyer with their vacation internship opportunities, or sometimes they may not send a flyer, they may ask for resumes, right? And so in order to be considered for those requests that come after recruitment fair, you would have to apply for our vacation employment, right? So it opens this week. In fact, we have the link. We can share it. At the time when I did this presentation, I wasn't sure if it's going to be ready, but it's ready. So um, pretty soon in the chat, you will see the link to apply for vacation employment. You want to fill out that form, right? And then you want to send your resume to vacation.employment@sta.ue.edu, right? So that's really important, sending your resume to us, because like I said, companies that we have a good relationship with, they will ask us for resumes and we will send resumes. In other cases, we will in most cases, we will send through the application database the job description and students can apply, right? So that's the main way that they do it. What I want to say is there are a lot of scams out there offering jobs. So you'll have to be vigilant, right? Job, vacation employment applications are going to come from vacation.employment@sta.ue.edu email address, or it could come from our departmental email address, career.place@sta.ue.edu, right? That's where those opportunities are going to come from, right? You're not going to get a really popular one last year was like a doctor working in Australia who wanted who was offering a remote position to do some kind of work, I don't know, and was paying X amount of money, and but the person needed to send money, and if you have to send money upfront, it's probably not real. but I would just say pay attention to the email addresses that you get job opportunities from. If it's not from career.place or vacation.employment, then it is not from us. Okay? If you're not sure, please email us, right? Students email us all the time around this period with where there are vacation opportunities going out, and they tell us, I got an email from this person. Is this you guys? So if you all are not sure, then ask us, right? You have to do your due diligence as well, right? So please, be vigilant, be aware, right? Because that's how a lot of people get caught. People looking for, people looking for job opportunities, people looking to earn some money. Peop That's one of the ways they catch people through fake job opportunities. So make sure it's coming from the right email address, right? Oh, so when you're sending your resume to Vacation Not Employment, you want to save it as a Word or PDF document, and you want to save the file as your first name, last name, major. If you're doing a minor, you can include the minor. So don't save it as resume. If 800 students send us their resume and save it as resume, then it looked like, we'd have to open every single one to know where to put it, right? So when you save it as John Doe BSc Spanish minor IR, we know to save it in the folder with all the other Spanish majors, right? If you're doing a double major, you can send us two resumes, one with one major, one with the other major, and then we'll save your major in two folders, right? So we'll save your resume, sorry, in two folders, right? So that's how you save your resume, right? So once you apply, okay, before I go on to point 3, once you apply for vacation employment, right, the deadline is going to close. You get an email from us. We don't individually acknowledge every single application because it's a lot. So once it's closed, we will send a general email to everyone who applied. We received your application. And then after that, you'll just have to kind of keep checking whatever email address that you gave us. Just keep checking it. We will send out opportunities, either the vacancy from the company. We'll send it to you via your email and you can apply. You can opt into applying if you are interested, or we will send out your resume. And in that case, you will receive a phone call and the company will identify themselves, right? And again, if you get a phone call from a company and you ask them and they say they've received your resume from our department. So we don't do this, we only do this with companies we have a good relationship with. But I would say reach out to us and let us know that you got a phone call from XYZ company and that you're just verifying that this is a an opportunity through our department, right? But most of it is going to be via email. But I want you to know that once you apply for vacation employment, right, there is a possibility that we will share your resume and you are agreeing to do that. If you, okay, and we continue. Right. So the other final way, even though, yes, you're going to recruitment fair, yes, you're going to apply for vacation employment, please do your independent job search, right? It's not a guarantee if you apply to us or you go to recruitment fair that you will be hired. So you want to definitely be proactive as well and do an independent job search, right? So you want to use your network. A lot of times, talk to your parents, talk to your aunts, your uncles, find out if there are any opportunities for internships in their workplace. Sometimes workplaces offer internships for as a way to give back to staff, offer internships for members of staff. Um, if they have children in university, they might do a mix. They might do members of staff, and then they might do external, they might do members of staff only. So find out if your parents work in such an organization, right? Target small organizations. So smaller companies that may not have internships per se, if you reach out to them, they might be willing to um they might they might have, I shouldn't say smaller, how to put this. A lot of people look at bigger companies like the Shells and the Nestle's and they target those companies. But smaller companies may also have opportunities as well, right? And it may not be as openly advertised as the bigger companies. So reach out to them, see if there are any, search and see if there are any smaller organizations that you're interested in and reach out to them and see if they have any opportunities. Plan and do your research, right? So that's what I mean when I say look for them, like go online, check the trade magazines. What's a trade magazine? I can't remember. No, not Ins and Out, that's a restaurant. But look at the trade magazines, see what organizations are there. Um, Reach out to them. Uh, See, do research online, check different organizations, not, in your country, everywhere. You're taking advantage of any opportunity that you might have. So look into those companies, pick up the phone calls, ask to speak to HR again. If you're going to do that, make sure you're professional about it. Don't, don't call and say, I want to find out if, you have to plan it, if you have to make a script and write out what you want to say, but reach out, call, find out if there are any opportunities, who's the HR manager, how does one go about sending their resume, do the research, figure it out. You can't apply to every single company under the sun, but there might be a few companies that are not at recruitment fair or if you do it early, they may be at recruitment fair, but there might be a few companies that you want to possibly work at and you're doing that research to get the information so you could put together your resume so you could send it to them. Start early. I mean, I know you guys have your coursework and you have your classes, but getting your resume, together as soon as possible because as you all know, once you get into exam mode, you're not going to really want to be thinking about your resume after exams. You want, because by the time exams finish, internship starts. So you just want to be able to have your resume and those things, have your resume ready before you kind of get into midterms. I don't know if midterms have started, but before you kind of get into that busy period with school. So you want to just knock it out. There's a holiday coming up. If you don't have any plans, maybe take the time to put together your resume. And if all else fails, keep calm and volunteer. Guys, like I said, you want to get experience, right? So if if you see the vacation going and nothing has happened, you want to position yourself, you want to volunteer. So part of that research could also be NGOs that you potentially would be interested in working for. And you can still get very relevant work experience based on the career that you're interested in as an NGO, right? Because when you're ready to graduate, you must have something to say on that resume, right? Work experience is good, volunteer experience is good. It's all good if you have had that experience, right? So don't let the time slip, slip by and you didn't get hired, so you never worked. And you stayed home, you helped around the house, you watched Netflix, you played video games, you read some books. All of those things are cool, but try to get some experience doing get some experience through volunteering, right? There are a lot of volunteer organizations out there. We actually have a community engagement department. So whose email address I cannot remember right now, but um, if you reach out to us by our department, career.place, we could um, send it to them, right? So if the paid internships don't work, then you can volunteer. When I say don't work, you don't get an opportunity for a vacation internship, you can volunteer with one of the NGOs, right? Do not take that lightly, right? Even if you do get to work, you should still try and volunteer. So that brings us to the end of the presentation. Thank you guys so much for being such a captive audience and being so engaging with all your questions. And that's it. You all are free to go. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Have a great rest of the week. Stay safe and be good.